Exclusivity is all about drumming up interest. It's about demonstrating value without having to spend 30 minutes to walk you through my pitch deck. How do you demonstrate abundance without being arrogant? Well, you have to be able to show them that you have options, lots of options. So how can you do this? The easy system, you've established your credibility, you've set up a meeting, you've set the framework for the meeting, and now either in this meeting or subsequent meetings, you're trying to create urgency for the person to act, but you don't want to be salesy. You don't want to be sleazy. You want to maintain that relationship after that deal's done. Because some people behave like that deal is all that matters, and they behave like animals to get that deal done, and they claw their way over everybody. Then that deal's done, and they want to be friends again. It's like, well, dude, like, you don't remember what you did to me for the last 3 months? Or how you conducted yourself with me? So, and again, if you have a fund model, presumably you already have some cash ready to go for that next step. So the easy system, what does it stand for? E is exclusive. So talk to me about what is exclusive about your deal. Don't have a deal? You have a fund? Great. Tell me about 3 to 5 things that make your fund exclusive. So in the context of this deal that I just did, I'll give you guys some examples. We're paying $11.1 million for a property that the owner paid $9.7 million for 6 years ago. So if you could buy a property today for prices from 2017, how many more deals would you buy? You'd buy everything. Because on an inflation-adjusted basis, basically, we're paying less than what the money's worth today from when it was back then. Like if you just do 5% inflation per year, we basically paid less than he paid 5 years ago or 6 years ago for this property. So I've said everything and I've said nothing, right? Exclusivity is all about drumming up interest. It's about demonstrating value without having to spend 30 minutes to walk you through my pitch deck. So that's one example. So again, you can have a statement around that. How much more property would you buy? Another exclusivity point about this deal is we paid $77,000 a door for this property in a market of 7 million plus people. If I'm on the phone with somebody in Toronto, the GTA, is it 6, 7 million people? Okay, so it's not like I bought a property in a village of 1,200 people. I bought it in a comparable market size as the one you currently live in. Make it real to whoever it is that you're talking to or whoever your audience is, because again, it's context, right? What are you going to get in Toronto for $77,000? Well, you might get a parking spot and a car wash. Right? Like that's about it. Also, feel free to have some humor with people when you're doing these things, right? So I've said nothing, but I've said enough for you to be like, tell me more. Tell me more. How did you do that? I'm trying to start a conversation. That's what exclusivity is all about. The third one was, if we wanted to rebuild the property, it would roughly cost us double than what we're paying. It's true. I talked to construction guys per square foot. If I was to level this thing and rebuild it, the replacement cost was easily double. That's a cool thing to know because as we all know nowadays, concrete, labor, everything is exponentially more expensive. So that's another indicator of value, very key piece. And the other one is, and actually, why is that relevant? Well, it makes it incredibly difficult for somebody to build a new property anywhere near ours and actually be competitive on rent. Because if their cost is double ours, what are they going to do? Charge double rent? I don't think so. So how are they going to compete with us? That makes our unit even more valuable in that regard. Another one here is a direct, and actually this was incredibly rare, but literally 3 months before we closed, a competitor, like a direct comp, almost like identical, sold right across the street to ours. Kathy probably drove by that one too, Park on Bay, for almost 20% more than ours. Now, you usually don't get that kind of a direct comp, but you guys are getting the point, right? Exclusivity. Is it, Pavel, you buy oceanfront. Let's just say you're building a fund around buying additional luxury properties that are oceanfront. The fact that they're oceanfront, that is exclusive in of itself, right? So you guys got to think about, maybe you're doing deals in a specific market, or maybe you have access to a certain group of people because of your relationships. It doesn't have to be deal specific. It could be fund specific. It could be, hey, my brother-in-law is the planner for the city, and we may happen to know where the new bridge is being built, or whatever. You guys understand? Like, it's like, if you knew where the GO train was going to go before I went there, would that be valuable? Yes, of course that's valuable. So it doesn't have to be the deal. It could be the context within which you operate. So that's your E for exclusive. The next one is A for abundance. So you need to be able to demonstrate to the people that you're talking to that you have a ton of options. Because the biggest mistake I see investors make when they're raising capital is they show up and they're like, hey, I have this deal. What do you think? Is this the right deal? Like, do you want to do this together? And you're asking them for approval. You're asking them for validation. Do you guys understand? Like, you're showing up to the investor, immediately gives, first of all, who has all the power? Him, right? I have very little because basically I have conceded to the fact that I need her approval or his approval to do this deal. So who's going to set the terms? Well, they are. Now, look, if you're doing your first deal or your first couple of deals and you're looking for mentorship, like if I was looking to him for mentorship or some other intangibles, then yeah, I would very well be like, hey, Naran, I have this deal. Let's work together. And there's an obvious mentor-mentee relationship. But look, you guys are beyond that. You're trying to find people that are passive investors. You're not looking for validation. You're looking for the fact that, hey, you want to give them the impression without any arrogance that I'm doing this anyway. Do you want to come? So in other words, how do you demonstrate abundance without being arrogant? Well, you have to be able to show them that you have options, lots of options. So how can you do this? Well, as an example, with M1 or within my context, you could say, these are things that are relevant to me. You guys can pick your own. Several people not being able to make our last opportunity. So, Arlette, I just wanted to call you on this deal. Look, I'm happy to share it with you. I do need to let you know that 2/3 of it is already subscribed because we had overflow from our last deal. So immediately that changes the tone of the conversation, right? Or we already have 2/3 of the cash or whatever it is. Our own capital, existing commitments. By the way, this is why you guys go out and get soft commitments from people. Even if you don't have a deal, and soft commitments doesn't mean you got the cash. You guys understand this, right? Soft commitments are, Arlette, I'm working on this thing. If this worked out, would you be interested? Yes. How much would you think? I'd probably do 250. Okay, great. So then you go and collect your soft commitments. You make sure you have them. By the way, another thing, just as a good bedside manners, never lie. Never bullshit your investors, like ever. If you have nobody yet, I have nobody yet. That's why I'm calling you. I wanted to get to you first. Whatever it is, but don't ever lie. Don't ever tell somebody you have something done, a permanent place or whatever. Don't ever lie, ever. Just own whatever it is. You will get 100 times further. You might fool some people sometimes, but you'll never fool everybody all the time. And that one time they get caught, once that gets out, it's not good for you. For those of you who are sitting here and you're like, well, hold on a second, I actually don't have any money to contribute. What are my investors going to think? If you're at a place where 50 grand is the world or 500 grand is the world relative to the size of the investment, own that too. Just say, look, I'm doing everything I can on this deal. I've got my money in a few other transactions. With this deal, it's just going to be my sweat equity. Just own it. Just be honest, just own it. There's nothing wrong with that, guys. You're in this business, unlike them, where they write a check sometimes, you're doing these deals all the time. You're not going to have money every time. I might put in 50 grand into a deal. I might put in 500 grand into a deal. It just depends on what I have when. This is what we do every day. It's a big piece of it. Other ways, you can talk about your database. So if you have a database, so another way to create abundance is you can say, look, I just want to get in touch with you first before the email goes out to the database. Before I speak in front of 200 people, before I produce this to my real estate club, before I, blah, 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 blah. Whatever activities you have happening, make sure you let the special people that have the ability to pull the trigger, let them know that you're letting them know before you do other things. It's a really important thing to think about. Next one is scarcity. So there's two ways to create scarcity, guys. One is time, and one is the amount of capital you actually need for a deal. Those are two real constraints within a business. It's not a pressure tactic. It's not a high sales. It's just, these are my limitations. So you might have the amount of capital that you're looking for limited. So as an example, let's say I needed $1.5 million. I might say something like, Arlette, I'd love to get you into this deal. My challenge is that average investor is about $150,000. And based on the amount of capital we have left for allocation, we're only looking for another 8 to 10 people to work with. So that's a way of creating genuine scarcity. So again, if you're raising a lot of money, break it down to more manageable chunks. Because if you're somebody who's never raised money before and you call somebody and you're like, hey, I'm raising $5 million. Okay, well, how much have you raised? Well, we're just starting. Your credibility is right down here, right? But if it's you and your partner and you guys are raising $5 million and you're responsible for 2 and you're responsible for 3, and you already have soft commitments, you can rephrase it that way. You could say, well, my portion of the raise is $2 million. I've already got soft commitments for $1 million. And our average investor is looking to be about 100,000. So I'm really looking for another 10 people to work with. You're not lying. You're just framing it in an empowering way. That's all you're doing. Never lie. I never teach you guys to lie, but reframe it in a way where you're still moving things forward. And it's not like you're calling them and saying, hey, like, I need $3 million. Like, can you, like, you're not putting the burden on the investor, right? So it's a really important distinction for you guys to work through. So that's scarcity 1. Scarcity 2 is time. So time can be as simple as, so you're having, by the way, the easy system when you're talking to an investor, you'll always start with exclusivity, but you may bounce around between the other letters. This will all kind of make sense to you guys. The investor might say something like to you, like, well, when do you need to know by, or when are you closing? You could say, well, our investment closing is on whatever day it says there. By the way, I say investment closing, not property closing. So again, you build a fund, you don't have to worry about this stuff. If you're still trying to piece things together, deal at a time, you got to give yourself enough margin of error before you need to close the deal. That's why brokers love dealing with funds, because the dough is in the count. They're not worried. There's less variables. Right? That's why you can negotiate harder, and they'll push their client to sell closer to your terms because, well, they also want to get paid and they also want to move on. They don't want to string this out for another 3 months. But my point is, whether you're doing a fund or an individual transaction, you have your closing well before when you need it. And that's the urgency. That's the date that you build around that. It's another way to set expectations. And then finally, why your allocation? So you're having the conversation. This is a fluid framework. Arlette's asking me questions. Well, what about this? What about that? We have the conversation back and forth. You can tell that she's interested. And I would say, look, Arlette, obviously you're going to need more information. And I totally get that. So what I'll do is I'll send you the full package. Sidebar. You guys also need to learn how to build a data room. So we teach that too, but you guys need to learn how to build a data room. So what I'm going to do, Arlette, is I'm going to send you the full package with everything, the legal documents, the package, all the different things for you to review it and make sure you're comfortable and that the deal is the way you thought it was. Because what's in her head is based on what we've talked about. So she's formulated a thought process around the deal. Okay. So now that being said, if everything checked out, is there an amount you'd consider allocating? That's a trial close. Because think about what I've said. I've qualified it. Obviously, you're going to need more information. Yeah, no kidding. We're talking for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. You got documents to read. You got performance to review. You got assumptions to... Again, there's 8 different types of investors, right? They're going to go through their own process. That's a trial close. Because think about what I've said. I've qualified it. Obviously, you're going to need more information. Yeah, no kidding. We're talking for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. You got documents to read. You got performance to review. You got assumptions to... Again, there's 8 different types of investors, right? They're going to go through their own process. So obviously, you're going to need more information. I'll send you the full data room. That's why there's power in knowing how to put together a data room. Whether your investor actually reads the whole thing or skims through it or likes the comfort of knowing that it's there and somebody else has read it, depending on the type of investor you're dealing with, the fact that it's there immediately gives you power and leverage. So obviously, Arlette, you're going to need more information. I'll send you the full package. You can go through it and make sure the deal is exactly the way you thought it was. If you have any questions from it, obviously you can ask me. And then look, as a sidebar, if everything did check out, is there an amount you'd consider allocating? Now, if Arlette's sitting there and she's like, she's really not going to invest, or she has some other issues, like, well, when do you need the money by? I have this thing that I'm doing, whatever. Those things will come out right there. They will. If they're serious, they'll come out right there. They'll say, well, then she might ask me, well, when do you need to know by? Well, we're closing on such and such date. Is there anything that's keeping you back from moving forward? Yeah, I've just got a business that I'm closing. I've got this happening. I've got this. Okay, great. So you can actually flush it out. Or if she is interested or he's interested, say, yeah. And they'll always say it this way. In my experience, they'll always say this. They'll say, yes, if it is the way I think it is, or if it is what I think it is, they'll qualify it because they don't want to jam themselves up either. If everything checks out, yeah, I'd probably do 100, 200, 250. Okay, so why don't we do this? I've got about $900,000 left that I have to fund on this thing. Why don't I do this? Why don't I set the 250 aside for you? You're not committed to it, but at least it's available to you for a couple of days. So you have a few days to go through the documents and make sure you're comfortable with everything. And I'll make up a day. Today's Wednesday. Is Friday enough time for you to take a look? Yeah, it is. Okay. So why don't we get on the call same time Friday, look at the documents together, see if you have any other questions, and then you can either let me know if you want to move forward or if I can allocate that somewhere else. You can either let me know if you want to move forward or if I can allocate that somewhere else. Fair enough? Yeah, fair enough. So you've done two things. One, they're on a timeline. Two, if they're serious, they'll say, yeah, sure, no problem. Just send me the documents. I'll review it. So you'll flush out the actual, and then, a lot of times you'll just get a text from them after if you have a good data room. And if you haven't oversold your deal, like if it is what you said it is in the way you said it is, and you've got a solid package, a lot of times you'll just get a text or an email. Yeah, it looks good. I'm in. Send me the paperwork. Or the paperwork's already there. I've already filled it out, whatever. That's where you guys want to get to. Or you'll get on a call on Friday. Yeah, looks good. But look, I just realized your deadline is this. I actually have this. Whatever. No worries. I'm still doing this in the future. I'd like to call you again in the future. Right? And that's how you leave the environment open to conversations. You don't just scorch earth. Because in 6 months or six days or whatever, you might have another deal. Or something changes and they call you back last second. They're like, hey, actually, this worked. I do have the cash. Can you still count me in the fund? Well, you don't know. Like, it's simple, right? That's why I called it easy, because I wanted you guys to anchor and actually be able to think it through. And again, you might go E, S, A, Y. You'll always start with E and you'll always end with Y. In the middle is kind of a conversation, but the easy system will let you have a conversation with someone either at that first meeting after you set the agenda, or 3 months or 3 years later when you check back in. Because that meeting you had, they may not be ready. You may not have your fund. You may not have a deal, whatever the circumstances are. And when you're checking in 3 weeks or 3 months, you can say, hey, we've met about that thing. Are you still interested? Yes. Okay, great. Look, I got this deal. We're putting it in the fund. We just tied it up for $11 million. We're paying $77,000 a door. For context, it would cost me double to build. Boom, 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 boom. My challenge is we've already funded 2/3 of it, but I remember that you were super interested last time we met. Are you still interested? Yes, I am. Okay, great. Look, I know obviously you're going to need more information. That's great. I'll send you the full package. But if everything's checked out, is there an amount you'd consider? Yeah, I'd probably be good for 250. Okay, great. Why don't I just set that aside for you for the time being? Today's Wednesday. I'll just set it aside, and then you can do your due diligence, make sure you're comfortable. Do you need anybody else to look at it? No, I do it on my own. Okay, great, no problem. So I'll send you everything. You guys understand? Like, it's just, you can build this war chest. And if you have a fund on top of that, where you can just close on a monthly basis the amount of capital you have available to you, my God, you're unstoppable. Like, you're gone. And your fund, as soon as you have your first asset in the fund, you can use that as the backbone of your future raising. Obviously, talk to your lawyer. They got to update your legal documents, your disclosures, all that stuff. But the point is, you have that there. And then it just becomes this snowball. Like, that's legacy, guys. Every single one, maybe not every single, but a good chunk of these REITs, these real estate investment trusts that are listed on the TSX or whatever it is, or down in the US, if you look at their financial disclosures, a good chunk of them started by being small private funds, and they would just roll their assets, and 10, 20, 30 years later, somebody decided to go public. That's all this was. Like, this is like, I'm not inventing anything here, guys. It's just, this may have been the first time you saw it, but this is not new. It may be new to us, but it's not new. This is the formula.